Segment 1. The human obsession with darkness. Villains are the shadow side of humanity. They embody the impulses we bury: anger, revenge, greed, ambition. Where a hero's story is about aspiration, a villain's story is about temptation. And that tension is addictive. Think about it. Heroes operate within rules. They fight for what's right. They inspire us to rise above. But villains? They ask the forbidden question. What if I didn't hold back? What if I stopped caring about morality and consequences? That's why we lean in when Hannibal Lecter whispers his unnerving truths, or when Nurse Ratched enforces her quiet but suffocating control. These characters show us what it looks like to unleash the parts of ourselves that society tells us to suppress. Psychologists suggest villain stories are a safe laboratory for the soul. They let us feel rage, cruelty, and obsession without acting on them. When Darth Vader lifts an enemy into the air with the Force, we feel the thrill of power. When Lecter outsmarts law enforcement, we admire his intelligence, even while recoiling from his monstrosity. It's like staring into a shadowy mirror, disturbing, but impossible to ignore. We recognize the villain's choices, and in some corner of our mind we whisper, "What if I had done the same?" And that's the secret. When we watch a villain fall or rise, it isn't just their story, it's ours. Their darkness reflects the edges of our own humanity, reminding us how thin the line really is between the person we are and the monster we could become. I have. Segment 2. The power of tragedy. The most unforgettable villains don't wake up one morning and say, "I think I'll be evil today." Their descent usually starts with tragedy. Michael Myers, introduced to us as a child who murders his sister without explanation, becomes a lifelong mystery, a question mark written in blood. He isn't a villain born of greed or lust for power. He is a riddle, a reminder that sometimes tragedy is silence and absence, an emptiness that grows into horror. Maleficent begins as a protector of her realm, a figure of beauty and light, but betrayal by someone she trusted and loved strips her wings away, leaving scars that fuel her rage. Her curse isn't born from malice, it's born from heartbreak, from humiliation, from a wound that never healed. And Magneto. Magneto isn't just a man who bends metal. He's a boy who watched his family ripped from him during the Holocaust. That trauma didn't just mark him, it defined his worldview. For him, cruelty isn't theoretical. it's history. His vengeance doesn't feel like villainy. It feels like survival. These stories matter because tragedy transforms villains into something deeper than bad guys. They stop being caricatures and start becoming symbols. Pain twisted into power. Grief sharpened into vengeance. And that's where we as viewers get hooked. Because when we see their pain, we can't help but imagine ourselves in their place. What if I had lost what they lost? What if the world betrayed me like that? Would I have stayed whole? Or would I have broken the same way? Tragedy doesn't excuse their choices, but it explains them. And the closer we get to understanding them, the harder it becomes to dismiss them as just villains. They aren't monsters born from nothing. They're people, scarred, dangerous, broken, but people nonetheless. And that's what makes their stories unforgettable. Segment 3, The Rule Breakers. If tragedy pulls us in, rebellion keeps us watching. Villains live without limits. They break rules that heroes and we have to follow. Take Hannibal Lecter again. Society tells us intelligence should be used for progress. He twists brilliance into horror, turning meals into murder. Cruella defies not only laws, but the very idea of morality, reveling in obsession and destruction for the sake of art and style. Loki, the trickster god, bends reality itself just to prove he can. Why do we love it? Because villains let us taste the fantasy of freedom. They do the things we could never admit we've imagined. Lash out at the boss, rewrite the rules, break free from the chains of morality. They carry the weight of our forbidden impulses and act them out on the screen. It's rebellion at its purest form. Watching them break rules scratches an itch in our minds, a reminder that deep down, there's a part of us that longs to do the same, even if we never will. Segment 4, The Moral Question. But maybe the real reason we obsess over villain backstories is the question they leave us with. Are they truly evil, or just victims of circumstance? Magneto fights for mutant survival. To him, every act of violence is justified self-defense, a response to a world that tried to erase him. Maleficent curses a kingdom, but only after betrayal stripped her of everything she loved. And Loki, Loki schemes and lies, but at his core, he's a child desperate for recognition in a family that never fully embraced him. These aren't just stories of power. They're moral riddles. They blur the neat categories we crave: good versus evil, hero versus villain. Instead, they force us into the uncomfortable middle ground where human beings actually live. Every time we watch, we wrestle with questions that have no easy answers. Where is the line between justice and revenge? Between survival and cruelty? Between a tragic anti-hero and a villain beyond redemption? Think about it. When Magneto slaughters those who threaten mutant kind, do we condemn him? Or do we secretly nod, knowing his rage comes from survival? When Maleficent curses a child, do we recoil in horror? Or admit we might also lash out if everything we cherished were stolen from us? When Loki betrays Thor, do we hate him? Or do we see the wounded son, craving love in the only ways he knows how? Heroes give us clear answers. They represent ideals. But villains? Villains give us questions. And questions linger. They force us to sit with discomfort, to examine not just their choices, but our own. Because deep down, the scariest thought isn't that villains are nothing like us. It's that they're exactly like us, except for one decision, one heartbreak, one twist of fate that pushed them over the edge. Segment 5. Why we keep coming back. So, why can't we stop watching villain origin stories? Because they aren't really about villains. They're about us. They peel back the mask of humanity and show us what lies beneath. Ambition, obsession, pain, and the hunger for power. They explore the fragility of morality, how one tragedy, one betrayal, one moment of rage can twist a person's path forever. Villains let us wrestle with questions heroes never can. They embody the what-ifs we're too afraid to ask aloud. What if love turned to hate? What if justice became vengeance? What if the desire to protect someone you love pushed you to destroy everything else? When we root for them, even for a second, we're not celebrating evil. We're acknowledging the truth that darkness lives inside everyone. Most of us never unleash it, but watching villains gives us a safe glimpse of what that might look like. And maybe that's the reason we keep coming back. Because villains remind us of a terrifying possibility that the only thing separating the hero from the villain is the story we choose to tell. Heroes may inspire us, but villains haunt us. And in the end, that haunting is why we can't look away. So the next time you find yourself rooting for a villain, or maybe even understanding them, remember this: what makes their story terrifying isn't how different they are from us. It's how close they really are.